Hello, this is Danny Ryan, and welcome to the Three Wheel Podcast. I'm your host today, and I am here with Bruce Harple. How you doing, Bruce?
Hey, I'm doing good, Danny. Glad to be here.
Welcome to Atlanta.
Yeah, always good to be back.
Yeah, nice to have you here. So we've got a great topic that you're going to be covering today, and look forward to talking with you about that. And it has to do with some of our projects we work with IT, some of our projects we work with business. So I'm looking forward to learning more about how you keep those two bodies aligned. So
yep, it's a big one, and that's kind of my theme. Is really kind of that business and IT alignment, and really kind of how does that impact us, right? As a professional services firm, you're kind of going into a customer and building and deploying solutions.
Yep.
So
cool. Let's get us started.
Yeah. So let's do this. So we'll kind of start at the basics, right? So just to kind of throw out some definitions of what it means when we say business and IT alignment.
Sure.
Because it can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. So I'll kind of start with the Wikipedia definition. What it describes it as: the alignment is a dynamic state in which a business organization is able to use information technology effectively to achieve business objectives, typically improve financial performance or marketplace competitiveness. Right, so that's really kind of very strategic, right? And other definitions really talk about that alignment really creating value, but value that's measurable, and a lot of times it does get tied back to kind of a financial outcome of some kind.
Yep.
Right, it's either driving revenue, reducing costs, improving margins, and things like that. So, but and that's kind of strategic. But for us, right, where we engage. So when we engage with either the business or we engage with IT, I kind of came up with it's kind of taking it down a couple of notches, and I really kind of describe it as really, for us going in and we've got to work with business and IT. It's really, I describe it as kind of ensuring that the business honors, IT governance policies, compliance, and standards, right, and the IT honors, really meeting the needs of the business. In a cost-effective and timely manner. So when we kind of are down at our level in the organization, those are the things that we really need to work with our customer, whether our customer's business or whether it's IT, to help them stay aligned with one another.
Yep.
So what I was going to do is kind of start out with just talking about from our experience what are some of the challenges that we see as we engage with the business, right, as our primary customer.
Yep.
They're paying our bill, and what are the challenges we see when we kind of engage directly with IT. So I thought I'd kind of lay that out first.
We get a mix of that, really. I mean, is it 60-40? Is it 50-50?
It's probably close to 50-50. It's a split. And we enjoy working with both.
Yeah.
Obviously, if they have budget, we like them. So. We'll work with either side of the business, but it is interesting that a lot of businesses do have their own kind of OpEx budget, their operating expenditure budget, and they have a little line item called IT consulting.
Yeah.
And that's how we kind of get engaged on the business. You would think for us, building custom IT solutions that we're always going to go in through IT, but that is not the case. So
Cool.
So maybe what we can do is let's just talk about challenges that we see, and I'll start with the business and then move over to IT, and then we'll kind of go into kind of how do we address those challenges. So on the business side, what we often see, it's a great thing. We love businesses to have those budget line items in their OpEx budget, but in some cases those businesses kind of get this kind of, I'll call it rogue IT mentality.
Yeah.
They have a budget and they have a line item on a budget. They kind of feel like empowered, like they can kind of do whatever they want to do and whatever they need to do, right, to run their business. And that's kind of a false sense of security because that's not really true. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have to push whatever you're doing through the IT organization. So they get this false sense of confidence and, they have control of their destiny when in reality they don't. So that's a challenge, right? Because we don't want to buy into that false sense of confidence and security as it relates to that. The other thing that we see too on the business side is they might have the operating budget, right? So they can kind of write a check and pay a vendor for services, but they don't have the CapEx budget. So guess what? If I build a solution of some kind, it's got to run on hardware somewhere.
Yep.
Right, and many times they don't have the capital budget to support that, so now they have to go to IT. So now there's a dependency there, in the IT organization. They can't be that rogue IT.
Yeah.
So they have that dependency.
I think a lot of this is why a lot of those cloud services are taking off or have taken off in the past, is that they look at them and they don't have to make that hardware investment, and so it's one of those things that it can come out of OpEx and try to sort of get around things too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's scary too, because then you get into kind of risking complying with, and nowadays, things like, data security, compliance, and regulatory kind of guidelines are critical. And when you start kind of going out on your own,
Yep.
you can put your company at risk.
Yep.
And part of our job as good consultants is to make sure, we're not part of that, and we want to make sure that we're not contributing to that challenge, that risk. Another challenge we see on the business side is they don't really care, kind of from the business perspective. They're just like, I want you guys to solve my problem, and they might not care what technology stack.
Yep.
Right, or what architecture a vendor might come in and use, but the IT guys do care. Right, so you come in and try to build a solution, and it's not on an architecture that's supported by IT. You're going to run into challenges, at some point, and you don't want that to happen. I mentioned, a lot of times business doesn't understand that the governance and compliance, regulatory kind of requirements of the organization, right? Because why should they care about that? They're trying to run a business. Not trying to comply with the things that IT in a lot of cases does, make sure that a business complies with. So, we can run into challenges there. And then the other thing is, many times the business doesn't think through that total cost of ownership, right? They're thinking, I'm going to pay $3 to come in and build a solution and I'm done. But they don't think about any kind of ongoing licensing costs that might be associated with that solution.
Yeah.
We talked about the hardware and the CapEx budget.
Yeah.
And the support and maintenance. I mean, who's going to care and feed for this solution once it's built, once it's deployed, once it's in production, especially if IT hasn't been involved.
Yeah.
Right. So, from the business side, those are some of the things that we run into. Right. Some of the challenges, some of the obstacles that we run into. So I'm going to flip it around. Yeah, and we'll talk about kind of on the IT side.
Okay. Yep.
So now we're engaging through IT. Yeah, what do we see as some of the challenges there? And one of them is, and this isn't all cases in all IT organizations, but in many cases, IT doesn't have that in-depth understanding of the business.
No. Stop the press.
They don't feel the same pains that the business feels. And a lot of times that's why businesses go outside of IT.
Yeah.
They're like, IT doesn't get me. They don't understand what I'm trying to do. And in some cases they do understand the pain of the problem, but they don't have all the detailed requirements, right? They don't have all the needs laid out in an organized way, right? Where they can actually kind of play that back to, the business to get, validation and confirmation that, that's exactly what I need you to kind of do to solve my problem. The other things, on the IT side, it's always important on the business side that you have an executive sponsor, right? Somebody on the business that truly cares about this, right? That's going to put some kind of skin in the game as well. And that skin could be budget. It could be resources they dedicate to it. Something where they've got an investment in this, right? Because if you don't have that business, with some kind of skin in the game and making some level of investment, it doesn't have to be dollars. It can be people. It can be resources. That can be a challenge. And the other thing, I mean, we've talked. You've had other podcasts. I mean, at 3, we follow an Agile Scrum approach, right?
Yeah.
And a real key element of that is this role on the customer side called a product owner. And the product owner is that person that really kind of creates the vision and makes sure that as the solution is developed, it's the solution that meets that vision, meets the requirements. And if that product owner is in IT, which a lot of times IT will try to play that role. And we're like, no, we really need to have someone from the business playing that role. They need to be the decision makers. They need to be telling us what functionality is critical, what functionality is nice to have, and things like that. So, a lot of times we see IT trying to represent the business, and we really push hard, so that doesn't happen, so that the business can represent the business and represent their needs and their desires. Other challenges we see is just, getting the business engaged early and often.
Yeah.
The sooner you get them engaged, the better, right? And you want them engaged every week, and again, and we'll talk about later in kind of the mitigation, Agile Scrum, really kind of drives those business users to have, regular participation, either daily and or at least, at the end of a sprint. But that can be a real challenge. And the other thing, the other challenge, in IT is not all IT organizations operate in an agile or iterative way, right? And we know from experience, the more iterations of a solution you can deploy and put in the hands of the end users, the sooner you get feedback, the sooner you can inspect and adapt and adjust, versus more of a waterfall kind of a process. And more IT organizations are moving to that, because they've seen the value of that. But that's something we actually try to help influence. And then the other thing we talked about, on the business side, they don't maybe always have adequate budget and funding because they're not thinking about the CapEx side.
Yeah.
We've been engaged on the IT side where they don't have enough budget, because they didn't do all their due diligence. They didn't gather all the requirements, and they don't have enough budget. They might have the CapEx budget, so they have the servers, right, and the network infrastructure, but they don't have enough budget to build the full appropriate solution, right, to meet the needs of the customer. So, those are kind of some of the challenges, and things that we see, depending on whether we're engaging at the business level or the IT level.
And I'm sort of generalizing here, but IT is very focused in on cost and trying to minimize costs, and very risk averse as well, typically, because they're trying to manage the risks inside of the organization. As opposed on the business side, they're very opportunity focused, trying to push innovation, trying to go after the next thing. And so it's almost like you have two different types of people, if they were a single person in each, that have two different types of personalities. And it's almost like I think of Covey stuff where it's seek first to understand. You have to understand what the other person, what their intention is when you're working with them, and both sides need to do that. IT needs to understand why they need to, what's the business opportunity here. Business needs to know what are the risks involved with doing this. And so it's one of those, you have to, both sides has to listen. But overall, they have different intents.
Yeah, no, and that's key, Danny. And you hit on some of the things I was going to talk about as well. I mean that seek first to understand is on both sides is key. And the listening part is real key too. And I think in IT's defense, and everybody knows this, in the industry. I mean, there's more things that the business wants to do than IT has the resources to do. Right, and that's what leads to the businesses that have IT budgets, right, where they can go out and in essence do their own thing, and because IT can't do everything, right? They just don't have the budget, they don't have the manpower, they don't have the resources to do it, and that's where there's contention, right? And our job as consultants, right, whether we go on with the business or whether we go into IT, is to really we don't want to create that tension. We want to make sure that tension gets, we want to make sure that tension is not there or that we eliminate it. So, we look at, how can we help, IT and or the business, eliminate those tensions that exist, because that's not healthy for anybody. And we want a good, cohesive, collaborative team, across the business and IT, because it takes that for what we do.
Cool. I hope I didn't jump too far into your.
No, man, that was perfect. That was
a lead-in, hopefully.
It was actually the first bullet under kind of business mitigation. So what I have next is a series of bullets for again, I'm engaged with the business. We're seeing these challenges. Well, how do we kind of work with the business to mitigate some of those challenges? So, guess what? The first one, learn and understand, IT's vision and priorities. Right. So, if a priority for them is server consolidation, right, and yet you're going in and adding more servers, to their environment, you're going to contend with them, right? That's going to be a challenge for you. So, as a business, you need to understand, what all the ITs, what's their vision, what are their priorities for the year, because you want to make sure you support that, right? You don't want to make it worse for them. So, some of that is that seek first to understand. And the other thing is just relationally. A lot of IT organizations have a portfolio manager or a business unit account manager. And as a business unit and as a business person, you should try to find out, who is going to represent your interests inside the IT organization. And if there isn't somebody there, we need to make sure we have that point of contact inside of IT, right? That somebody that is that portfolio business account kind of manager. And then really making sure there is an IT executive who, is going to really step up and work with you to make sure you can achieve what you need to achieve, as a business. So it's the relationships, right? And making sure you have those relationships built and established. And one of the first things we always ask going in is, do you have a governance plan? Is there a governance review board? So who controls, how you deploy new solutions into your environments? Whether it's SharePoint or whether it's a web app, it doesn't matter, right? So that's a good question to ask. And every business unit should understand that at some level, right? Maybe not the details of it, but should understand, is there a governance process in place? Same thing, a lot of organizations have a global security organization. We need to know that up front. They need to know that up front, because there are gates that you have to get through, right? From a security perspective, from a governance perspective. And we want to know what those gates are up front, because getting through those gates could cost you money, right? Because it might take time to prepare the proper artifacts and documents that need to be reviewed and approved to get through those gates. And if you can't get through those gates, you can have the best solution in the world, but if IT is not going to let you deploy it, then you've kind of missed out. Yeah, and we talked about total cost of ownership. Making sure that one of the things that we do with the business is make sure they think through hardware, software, services, and support. Sustainment, right? That total cost of ownership. We don't go in and just quote, here's what it's going to take for us to build this solution. We go in and quote, here's what it's going to take. Here's the hardware that you're going to need to make this work. And oh, by the way, here's what it's going to take to sustain this going forward. So they have that bigger picture. Another thing we encourage our business people to do is to make sure IT. We talked about kind of having that IT sponsor, right? That executive and that product owner, but also get an enterprise architect assigned to your effort, so that you can begin to align that technology stack that I talked about, right? So is what we're proposing to build and develop, is that technology stack that we're looking to use to build a solution, is it aligned? So, get that enterprise architect involved and make sure that there's people from IT, on the team and part of the project. Again, kind of that getting skin in the game, and making sure that they're part of that team. Get them involved in architectural reviews. Get them involved in project management. The IT side should have a project manager that complements your project manager on the business side, right?
Yep.
And get that alignment going. So, and the last thing I had, which is I think everybody does, is making sure you have, from the business side, a good communication plan, right? So, you want to make sure you have a communication plan that addresses, how is the help desk, impacted on the IT side? How is the global security organization impacted? How is governance impacted? How is operations impacted, right? The people that have to do the care and feeding of the solution, that have to get it set, inside of disaster recovery. and those things. So, those are just some of the things that we like to think about when we go in on the business side. Those are the conversations we have early on with our business owners to make sure that they properly align with IT.
I just got a text from Amy, and she said that somebody just brought over some jambalaya to our house. So if you could please speed that up a little bit.
I'm coming then. I'm going with you. Yeah. So the last thing, right? We talked about IT challenges. So I'll kind of just go through some of the things to think about, on the IT side to kind of mitigate IT not being aligned with the business. And number one, back to your seek
first to understand.
First to understand is learn and understand the business. And I put in quotes, feel their pain.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't understand your customer and your business's pain, it's going to be harder for you to know how to support them, right? And how to build a solution to alleviate their pain.
You have to do the Bill Clinton feel your pain hand. I feel your pain.
That's it. I feel your pain. But it's true. It sounds kind of silly, but you need to feel the pain. And they need to, IT, you need to, just like I talked about in the business, they need to build relationships, right? With the executive sponsor, with a project manager, with the enterprise architects. The IT people need to do the same thing. They need to build a relationship with the business executive. They need to build a relationship with the product owner who's on the business side, not the IT side. And one of the things we like to do is we like to build a shared vision for the product, right, or the project. So, and we do that together. Like IT and business, let's build a vision for what we're trying to accomplish, because, every decision that we make as we go through the project is we always look back to that vision. So is this decision that we're going to make to do this thing or add this requirement, does it support the vision? If it doesn't, why are we even thinking about it? Why are we talking about it?
Yeah.
Is the vision wrong? So, we like to have that written out and kind of posted where we all see it and we all have visibility to it. We all come back to it, right, to make sure everything we're doing supports that vision. I talked about making sure IT has skin in the game, but it's also just like the seek first to understand, make sure the business, has got skin in the game, and it doesn't have to be dollars, but typically there is budget involved, but that could be resources, right, and other commitments that they make. And the other thing that we like to do, right, and this is kind of part of Agile, is taking those requirements and building out a backlog, right, and playing that product backlog back to say, does this capture the things and what this solution needs to do, and then also, tying success, acceptance criteria to all of that, right, and making sure that you have that alignment on. Not only is this what you need me to do, right? This is the what, but if I do the what and it meets this criteria, then you're happy, right? And really, that's an important part of gaining that alignment. That acceptance criteria forces that alignment, at a solution level. And the other thing we like to do too is take that backlog and build a roadmap, right? So it might be you can't do everything you want to do within the budget and time constraints. So we think it's important for IT to work with the business to build a roadmap. So this is kind of the V1 version of this solution. But I know you want to do these other things. Well, let's plan a release every 6 months, or every 9 months, or every quarter. So we're big believers in having those roadmaps that are really business driven, right? You're letting them decide what's in those roadmaps. And I talk about the other bullet here is just delivering value early and often, right? Agile Scrum, supports that, right? Because every 2 weeks, you're delivering value, right? You're delivering features, you're getting feedback. And then the last thing, man, it goes back to what you said, Danny. I just wrote down, communicate, listen, and it's so key. And I talk about, we do that through retrospectives. So we are constantly doing retrospectives, with our customers, and we want the business and IT involved in those retrospectives because we want to inspect and adapt. How can we get better at meeting the needs of the business? How can we get better at meeting the requirements that IT has to meet? So
for folks who don't know, what's a retrospective? Just a high-level definition.
yeah, a retrospective is where we sit down with a team and we ask 3 questions. What should I continue doing? What should I start doing? And what should I stop doing? So it's a great way to just kind of reflect on what you've experienced and figure out, the things that are working, the things that are not working, and what new things can we do to get to work even better together. So
awesome.
That's it. That's a lot.
Together. That's great stuff. This whole conversation reminds me of a situation in Office Space. Have you seen Office Space?
I have not.
Okay, you got to see Office Space because it's just one of those classic movies. But this is a couple of quotes from one of the scenes in Office Space. Let me see if I've got the volume turned up. Yeah, I think I do here. So the situation is they have some business consultants coming in to look at their business to decide, sort of who can they fire. And so they're sitting down, and one of the guys asked this.
What would you say you do here?
So one of the guys comes in, and this is he's like a business liaison. So
right.
He's someone between the IT and the business. I think he says he's the one who he brings the specs from the business down to the programmer. So he's like the guy who brings this down. And so he's asking what do you do here? And then the guy gets upset at a certain point, and this is what he says. And I apologize. I think there's a little bit of cursing in here, but it adds to the whole situation.
I have people skills. I am good at dealing with people. Can't you understand it? What the hell is wrong with you people?
He's trying to explain that he's got good people skills to be able to communicate from the business to the IT, and he's sitting there blowing up with this.
I love
guy.
it.
So
Perfect.
It's a great scene.
It's a great one. But plays right into this. I love it.
But I think there's people inside these, inside the larger organizations who act as the liaison. I mean, all this stuff speaks right to them.
Yeah, it does.
They're that person, they're that conduit that's trying to make sure that both sides understand each other, are working well together, and I think for us, our project can fail if we don't think about the other side. And so for
Absolutely.
us, we have to act that way as well. Work with the liaison, or act as a liaison ourselves to make sure that the project's successful. This is great. This is a really good topic. So I appreciate you taking the time to put all these points down and share this with us.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of passion around this, and we don't go into a customer just to build things. We truly, we go in to build relationships, and we care about that business and IT alignment. We don't take it for granted. We know it's important, and we know it's got to be there, and we work hard with either one of those organizations to make sure we help them get the proper alignment that they need so we all can be successful. So we have a lot of passion around it. We kind of feel like it's part of what we should do as good consultants.
We're coming on 30 minutes. We're going to wrap it up here.
We're put people to sleep now, man.
We beat 30 minutes. If you're listening now, God bless you. Thank you so much for listening. You are a determined person, and this means a lot to you. So we appreciate you guys taking the time to listen. Have a great day, and thanks so much.
Thanks, Danny.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right.